All right. This is the first Sunday after we just announced that we're going to finally be gathering together again. October 3rd at the new Box Jelly Ward Try Coffee location. Oh, there's so much I could say about that. Before I get into this sermon, when we first gather October 3rd, that will be almost 20 months since we've last gathered. That's almost 2 years since we've gathered in person. 7 years or so of building something, of growing, of evolving, of changing, of risking, of pouring ourselves out, of seeing lives change and new people in the community and baptisms and connection and returning to church, coming for the first time, all these amazing stories with Imagine. You build something and then it's gone. That is why we wrote on the announcement, it's time to be born again. Because we know in this new chapter, while Imagine sustains its history, remains who it is, remains committed to the same thing, stays true to its values, stays true to who God has shaped us to be, we also know at the same time it's going to be something brand new. I will tell more about the story of the space at the end of the sermon. So let's jump into Deuteronomy 1:6. Deuteronomy 1:6, God, I just want to say this one part of it, of that whole section. Deuteronomy 1:6, God says to the people, you have stayed on this mountain long enough. You have stayed on this mountain long enough. How many times in your life would it be nice to hear the voice of God saying to you, you have stayed on this mountain long enough. You have stayed in this relationship long enough. You have stayed in this job long enough. You have stayed in this group of friends long enough. How nice would it be for us to hear the confirmation of the voice of God in those moments where we've gotten the sense that it's time to move on, but it's still so easy to stay. God says to the Israelites, you have stayed on this mountain long enough. At this point, Israel was camped on the Great Plains of Moab. They were able to see across the Jordan River and into the promised land, which was the land that God had promised them after they had been liberated from slavery. See, they came through this long and difficult journey out of Egypt. About a year had been spent in the recesses of that wild solitude, laying the foundation under the immediate direction of God, God shaping them into a new community. And when that formation had finally been accomplished, they had been there for so long, they felt settled and safe and comfortable. And it was like, as they were settled, safe, and comfortable, God had broken up the camp and told them, you've stayed on this mountain long enough, and now it's time to move on. Sometimes what God has intended as a temporary settlement, we start to treat like it's a permanent residence. That was temporary. That was a season. That was a chapter, but we get so comfortable that when the Spirit keeps calling us forward into where we're really going, we actually sometimes have a hard time because we've gotten comfortable. What we treat as a temporary or what God sees as a temporary settlement, we start to treat like it's a permanent residence. Think about, what you've been through. Think about what we've experienced as a church. For some of you, Bevy was the first place that you were part of Imagine, or the Sandbox was the first place, or some of you, even this whole COVID digital area was the first place for you to really be a part of Imagine. And think about your life when you first came and where you're at now. Think about the relationships you've made through this community, the connections that you've built, the opportunities it has opened up for you, and the possibilities you can see. Some of you first put your trust in God in new and deeper ways here. Some of you returned to Jesus in a fresh way through this community. You have great memories of when you first came, of what it was like right before COVID. We all have that. The digital era, I'm sure, is comfortable for some of us because we're in a groove. I'm included in that. But then, like God saying to the Israelites, there comes a moment, just like when God says to the Israelites, you've stayed on this mountain long enough. There's a moment where we all know we've stayed on our own mountains long enough, and it's time to move on. And it's about trusting that there is new life ahead. You know, I just watched a Netflix documentary on Quincy Jones. I think it's just called Quincy. I recommend everybody to watch it on Netflix. It's just a great documentary. You learn about Quincy Jones and his musical and artistic and cultural journey in the United States of America. And it really is one of the unique, influential, and impacting stories you don't really realize fully of especially someone involved with music and art in the 20th century. Like his influence, his reach, what he was involved in. Like growing up in Chicago, moving to Seattle, learning so many instruments as a teenager, going to Paris, learning how to compose, starting to produce music eventually. Like he's, at least from the way they tell the story, he is, like, you could say he's one of the main people after the Jackson 5 who really helped discover Michael Jackson. Like Michael Jackson was already on the map through the Jackson 5, but when it led into his first solo album, Quincy Jones was the one who really noticed what Michael Jackson had. So that alone puts you in this massive place culturally in the US in the 20th century. But I didn't even realize how much Quincy Jones did, right? That what he composed, the movie scores that he did, the albums he made, the albums he produced, the artists that he helped break. And on top of all that, I never even realized that Quincy Jones' daughter is Rashida Jones, who a lot of people know from The Office. And she's in many other things too, but I've watched The Office forever and know the character. And right when the documentary started, you see how that's his daughter. So I'm like, not only does this guy have one of the biggest influences musically in the 20th century, somehow he helped influence The Office because his daughter was on there. Like, this dude's reach is crazy. And here's the thing that helped define Quincy Jones's career. At every single season of his life, he refused to settle. He refused to get too comfortable. He refused to just play it safe. He refused to keep doing the same thing. He refused to take the easy way out. And what happened was every time he came to the edge of his season, instead of getting comfortable and settling, he stepped over the threshold, broke through walls of resistance, and took a risk on the next thing. He kept growing. He kept taking risks no matter what people said. He never stayed on the mountain for too long. The Sandbox, great place for Imagine. Bevy before that, great place for Imagine. Agora before that, great place for Imagine. There is a next space for us, for new life, for us to thrive, for the same spirit and heart and body of Imagine to grow into its next place. I want to tell another story about the space and how we got there to bring all this together. First of all, Ephesians 3:20 through 21 has this amazing section. In one of the sections, Paul writes this phrase. He says, talking about the work of the Spirit, the work of Christ God, and he says, quote, immeasurably more than you can imagine. This idea that God can do immeasurably more than you. No matter how wild your imagination is unable to contain or even fathom the life God has ahead of you and what is stored in the imagination of God. See, so often we see what's practical when God opens us up to what is possible. Our imagination is limited to what's practical, and God of the impossible opens us up to see the impossible that we discover is actually possible. You know, when we moved into the Sandbox, it was an amazing story. You know, how we got in before the Sandbox even opened to the public. You know, old relationships I had, the reputation Imagine had, the people of the Sandbox taking less money from us than another church who made an offer because they believe in and trust our work and our presence and our witness in the neighborhood. And I remember first going to the Sandbox August of 2019, which is crazy. It's over 2 years ago. And just knowing, like, I could have never imagined something so perfect for that chapter. How even though there was another one that made sense, this one was so far beyond what I could imagine during that time. And it was like it didn't make sense because it didn't seem possible to me. It wasn't practical. Like, I couldn't see it. I couldn't plan it. It was beyond what my imagination was currently able to hold. It wasn't practical, but somehow I still saw with God that it could be possible. And it was the best thing. Now, our time was cut short, obviously, but it was the best place for us at that time. Now, to where we are in our new space at Box Jelly and Chai Coffee. When I came back from California, I left after we already announced we're going to be meeting again, right? So we thought maybe September-ish or whatever. So we say, hey, we're going to be meeting again. When I go to California, every day I'm there, I keep seeing the numbers in Hawaii get higher and higher. Like the highest they've almost ever been. 800, 700, 1,000 cases. It's like crazy, off the charts. And I came home still confident we were going to move forward, but like less confident. Like I still sensed we were moving forward, but I was a little bit more unsure of it, you know, if that makes sense. I knew we had to meet with this core group of leaders that we have, who's really kind of, you know, looking ahead to the next season. And because I mentioned this, you know, Sandbox reached out to us. They're like, Sandbox said we want to keep our old prices. We want you guys to, like, you guys can come back. Awesome. That's amazing. But I was like, Sandbox, okay, going back to meeting inside during this time, right? Everyone's wearing masks. Are people going to come? Do people feel comfortable? Who's comfortable? Who's not? Where are we all at with this? So we had a meeting with about 10 leaders, and we got to hear from everybody about what they feel about meeting together again and meeting together again inside. And that group really represented, it was a small sample size that kind of is a microcosm that represents the whole of. Some people were like, I love Imagine, we need the community, let's make it happen, I'm down no matter what. Other people say, yeah, I have a family member who's immunocompromised, it would be really hard for me to go. But also, if I made a decision not to go and everybody was meeting, that would also kill me, right? Another person's like, I could see both sides. Another person's like, I work with COVID patients all the time. It would feel irresponsible for me to go into an enclosed space with other people. Not for me, but for them, right? You hear it all. In that meeting, that Tuesday night, however long ago it was, for the first time, I released and let go of the Sandbox. Just in the moment in the meeting, I said, I don't think it's the Sandbox. Meaning, I don't think we can, I personally, for us, for our responsibility for the health of people while desiring to pastor people at the same time, we're not comfortable, I'm not comfortable bringing a large group of people indoors right now. I don't think people want that. I don't think it's wise. All these different things, right? Whatever I'm thinking in the moment. Like I just don't see it. I don't see that working, right? I don't see that being the best thing. And for the first time in the 18 months, I always assumed we would go back to the Sandbox. Like it would be a reunion. It would be special. It'd be like, remember we were here or whatever. And I think I always assumed that. For the first time in that meeting, I was like, it's not the Sandbox. I just, internally, while people were talking, I let go of it on the spot. in the exact, and not the exact same, but in that same moment, in the same conversation, I also had this thing was, I know where we're going to meet. Had never talked to him about it, had never approached these people about doing it. In that moment, when I let go of the sandbox, almost immediately I was like, I know where we're going to meet. There's a long story to how that worked out. Within 2 days, at this new Box Jelly and Chai coffee space in Ward, just past Ward a little bit. Within less than 48 hours of that meeting, when I said I know where we're going to meet, they had already committed to let us meet there. Never talked to him about it before. Didn't even. By the time I was building up my story to tell them what we needed, the CEO of the space was like, "Oh, so basically you need a space like this." And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Go ahead, you guys got it. Go for it." Like that. Like not a bunch of hoops to jump through, not a bunch of red tape. Like before I could even finish talking, he's like, "You guys can use this space. Like pretty much whatever you want." This space it's indoor, outdoor, but it's mostly outdoor. There's just a couple open doors to this inside part, but it's an outdoor lanai, beautiful space, these cool rooftop vibes in the city. And we're going to be moving to nighttime gatherings because they're open in the morning. So it's like that cool dusk to nighttime lighting, roof, city, beautiful, spaced out, outdoors. Like that's just one of the biggest things was like, we're not going to go back fully indoors right now. There is no, like the sandbox, there's no place like before this or whatever, like you couldn't even have imagined a place this perfect for us in this season, this safe for this many people, this beautiful of a space. And even the lanai we're going to be meeting on is actually like bigger than Bevy was. I like looked at it, and as I was like looking at how big it was, I was like, this place is longer and bigger than Bevy. So it's not like, oh, we found a space that will work, I guess. It's like, no, this is a premier space. In Kaka'ako Ward, it's one neighborhood over. Some people call it Kaka'ako, technically it's Ward, but in the Kaka'ako Ward area, still close by, beautiful space, feels like Imagine, outdoors mostly, like you could not, like the God, like Paul says, who does immeasurably more than you can imagine. That space is immeasurably more than most people could imagine. And there's a new time ahead. For those of you who are still tuning in on Sundays, we used to sing that song in Sandbox. It was like our theme. It keeps getting better. It keeps on getting better. It's my version of it. And during COVID, it's hard to sing songs like that and believe them. But deep down, I always knew there was another moment, and the time is now. There's going to be this whole new space, a whole new gathering, friendly old faces. I anticipate new faces coming in, and there's just a new chapter. All of this, there's a new moment to be born again, to worship together, to sing those songs, to hear that laughter, to feel that welcome, to know the acceptance, to feel the power of the presence of God and the graciousness of the Spirit through the presence of people as Imagine gathers, through the Eucharist, through the time. All that stuff is going to come back, and there is another chapter ahead. So Imagine is reopening. It is another chapter of God's faithfulness to this community in this neighborhood, and we are so excited, and it's coming up so soon, and we can't wait to see all of you there.
You were the Word at the beginning, one with God the Lord Most High. Hidden glory in creation, now revealing you as didn't want heaven without us. So Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great, your love was greater. What could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. Death could not hold you. The veil tore before you. You silenced the boast of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring the praise of your glory. For you are raised to life again. You have no rival. You have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. Yours is the kingdom. Yours is the glory. Yours is the name above all names. What a powerful name it is. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a powerful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus. Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. You are good. You're good. Ooh, you are good. You're good. Ooh, let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the air